Hello. Thank you so much for being back here and joining me. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I have never done something like this before, but I feel like today I've got a lot to say as I am entering into my 38 weeks in this pregnancy. I wanted to talk a little bit about postpartum preparation. This is not the first video that I have made on how one can prepare for postpartum, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, yes, the things that I am doing, but also just how backwards we have it in the Western world, how we have just forgotten about the importance of minding these mummas and how sacred the whole thing can be, and how maybe we can make it easier, we can make it gentler, we can make it better. It doesn't have to be gross. It doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. It can be a really sweet, nourishing, gentle time. So, some of the practical things, yes, but also I just wanted to talk first about how wrong I did it last time, or not last time, but I mean certainly the first birth. With my postpartum experience after Oedipus, I had the most incredible birth. I was on a high and just wanted to show my baby to the world, and really just opened my doors way too early. I was inviting everyone and their dog to come and see us. I was out in the cafe pushing my fancy buggy. I was honestly, this makes me cringe even saying it out loud, still bleeding when I went back to the gym. It was just a whole mess. And so with each pregnancy and each birth and postpartum period that I have supported other mamas in as a birth worker, I learn more and more about the importance of the first 40 days, more about how I can hold space for other mamas, and more about how important it is, I guess. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about it. So, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who are like, oh gosh, what is she talking about? Is this some crunchy, hippy-dippy stuff? Yeah, sure. It can get crunchy, it can get hippy-dippy, you can make it that way. But as a general rule, when we talk about postpartum, we're thinking about the fourth trimester, you might have heard it being called, or the first 40 days, which, in a nutshell, is a period of time. Sorry, I got interrupted with one of my sweet boys. So it's about 6 weeks. 6 weeks approximately after the arrival of our sweet little babies. And during this time, we are recovering, and your baby is just slowly unfurling into the world of bright lights and sounds, and together you are devoting yourselves to forging your relationship outside of the womb. And though brief, it is a time of amazing intensity, massive adjustment, and your body is just transforming again. And your heart is throbbing with more feelings than you ever knew possible. Your internal rhythms are just like a ping pong. As the days and nights merge, your stamina and serenity get tested like never before. Your connections to the world that you knew before just loosen as you go into this bubble, or even become undone, and your sense of who you are begins to change and morph. I know for me, I super duper question, who am I? What's going on? Who are my people? I'm reaching out to find out where I fit in the world. Who's going to hold space for me while I navigate this tricky time? And in other times, in other places around the world, this postpartum period of healing and adjustment is just expected and allowed, and after the rigorous and demanding act of birth, it's considered critically necessary for the whole family and for society at large that a woman be given at least the first 40 days to heal, to rest, And other people in her community would just feed her. They would nurture her. They would take all responsibilities off her plate so that she could just focus on one thing only, transitioning healthily and happily from expectant woman to mother. You can see here I've got like a cupboard dedicated specifically to lovely nourishing like herbs, dried flowers. So I'm making myself up. Actually, I think in this video, I'm making up my last birth client, a nice sitz bath mixture with some Epsom salts and some herbs. I'm making this beautiful postpartum tea with red clover, nettle, and lady's mantle from the garden. Sometimes I'll add some lemon balm in here just for that lovely soothing property, or a little bit of chamomile. So yummy with a bit of honey. And yeah, so all around the world, we've figured it out. But for the first 40 days, or sometimes, 30, 21, depending on the culture and where you're getting your literature from, the new mother is supported. She stayed secluded rather, from the busy stream of life, tucked indoors with her infant at her side. And she receives all these lovely special meals to rebuild her energy, to replenish lost nutrients, and to help her body produce breast milk if that's how she plans on feeding her baby. In following traditional practices of staying rested and warm, we are doing as much as we can to prevent exhaustion and depletion. The understanding is here that the new mother is just as vulnerable as her newborn, requiring her own steady stream of attention and care. A dedicated time of postpartum recovery really is about helping to keep future illness and, equally important, depression at bay. And as someone who has lost a friend to postpartum depression, this is something that is very close to my heart. And as someone who has, prior to babies, struggled with their mental health, I am acutely aware of how I can support myself in this. I also have to giggle almost inappropriately at me trying to move this massive, heavy mattress off the bed. It's just not going anywhere. And eventually I think I give up and just wait for my husband to come home, because the plan here was for me to move it to make our floor bed setup. We do co-sleeping, bed sharing. It's the easiest way for us all to get as much rest as possible. And this was me preparing for that time. I'm also showing you here some of my favorite books. In one of the ways that I like to prepare for postpartum for mamas I support, but also for myself, I want to fill the freezer. The freezer needs to be full of all these beautiful, nourishing, warming, easy to digest, high protein meals to support our bodies after the big journey that we've done. So here I'm making one of my favorite sort of bases, sauces, stews, soups, curries, broths, teas, all of these lovely things. I actually have an entire blog post where I share, I think it's 30 meals that I have cooked to fill my freezer with this time around. And this is the first time around that I bought a deep freeze, which I'm highly excited about. So that is filled to the brim and just jam-packed with all of these nourishing goodies. So hopefully I won't have to do any cooking for the first month, which will be wonderful. So let's talk about today in the West and how we are slowly waking up to the importance of cocooning our baby in the weeks following birth, and how the understanding that he or she is not quite ready to meet the world at large when they emerge and is still in an early stage of development, and that we need to support them in that fourth trimester. We are slowly awakening up to the value of holding our babies close and sheltered for some weeks so that they can shift slowly and gradually into life outside the womb. But somehow we have forgotten that the time-honored wisdom that this special cocoon of care should also extend to the mother as well. And in those first 40 days, which roughly correlate with the 6-week phase that the Western medicine calls the postpartum period, the old ways teach that an amazing opportunity presents itself to a woman. During this time, she can revitalize herself, replenish herself and her reserves, creating a solid foundation from which to tackle the demands of mothering, whether it's the first, second, third, fourth time or more. And furthermore, teach that with the right postpartum care, a mother can preserve her reproductive health for future children, or eventually experience an easy menopause, aging gracefully over the decades to come. Perhaps it's because pregnancy and birth get all the magazine covers and headlines. It's no surprise, as these events sell more stuff and are more glamorous, maybe, that we have overlooked the last part of the childbearing story. A woman's postpartum experience might be given maybe a brief nod at the end of a pregnancy book, or 30 seconds footage at the end of a telly show, but a deeper look almost never occurs. Rather than get invited to take a sacred time out after delivering her child, the new mother is more likely met with the pressure to bounce back to her pre-pregnancy self, back to her pre-pregnancy productivity, back to her pre-pregnancy body, and back to her pre-pregnancy spirits. So, I guess this is a bit of a waffly video, but if you take nothing from this, take the note of being gentle with yourself, preparing for this period, because you deserve it, and we are different when we come out the other side.